You and I were just talking about this before we hopped on. It's so difficult to just say no sometimes, but you have to get in that habit to just like say no without, you don't even have to give a reason.
Yeah.
You can just be like, hey, thanks so much, but I can't make it, have a great time. And that's that. You don't have to give a reason why, anyone else living that. Sometimes people in our past aren't on the same path, and that's okay. But you have to be okay with decluttering some of those relationships in order to continue that growth and not being dragged back down, as difficult as it is.
Welcome to the SuccessFlow podcast, where our mission is simple: to be better each day and relay our findings with other relentless humans defining success for themselves. If that sounds like you, let's begin.
Back at it on the SuccessFlow podcast, and it's spring. Spring has sprung. We've got, residing in the desert, both of us. We've got spring training in play. We've got folks on spring break coming into town. It's popping. It's popping in Scottsdale and Phoenix. And for this episode, we're going to take a spin on spring cleaning. Maybe our listeners are doing a deep dive at the house, like actually cleaning the floorboards, getting in the cabinets, getting rid of the junk drawer. But we're going to talk about not only physical decluttering, which is super important, like we talked with your sister Shannon, but talking about cleaning down and stripping away the non-essential in all areas of our life. What do you think about this for a spring cleaning episode, Sir Harris?
I love the topic. It's perfect timing. You nailed it. Kids are on spring break. We got spring training. We got spring showers going on right now, which is nice. We haven't had too much rain yet this spring, or to tail end of this winter. But yeah, I think this is great. I mean, I think it's a habit of a lot of people. Every spring, getting out of the holidays, the new year's kicked off. You're fully invested in what you're doing for the new calendar year, and it's like, let's take some time and clean up the house. And I think there's more to it. And you told me about that documentary on Netflix, The Minimalists. You love that documentary. It's about an hour long or so. I hadn't seen it. Actually, just watched it last night just to get an idea of what it was. And I can't remember the two guys' names, but they're an advocate for being a minimalist. And basically what that means is living with less and finding happiness through that and not needing all of the things. One of the crazy stats that I heard in that documentary last night was, 300,000 items is the average that is in a household. Like an item, like miscellaneous cables and clothes and food or TVs or electronics or whatever, the junk drawer that you mentioned. 300,000 items. And I started thinking to myself when I was watching this thing, I was like, dude, that's probably a low number. If you think about every single item, when you start trying to add it up, and then I just wanted to Jack was watching a little bit with me, and I'm like, dude, we're getting rid of everything. That documentary definitely kind of kicks you into gear. It's like, man, we've got a lot of stuff. And they use that word a lot in saying that we all, especially Americans, have so much stuff. We just want stuff. And Amazon has kind of pushed us towards that. We get daily deliveries and we joke about it and get those boxes of things. It's so easy to just order stuff and get it delivered sometimes same day, depending on where you live. And it's pretty crazy to think about how easy it is to get and accumulate more things.
Yeah, Josh Milburn and Ryan Nicodemus are the guys that put that together. And it had a big impact on me. And this is something that Paul and I talk about a lot because I love the theory of minimalism. And I'm going to take it a step further in regard to a term that I like better by Greg McKeown. But while we're talking about the minimalists in these guys, I just love what they did there to make it's a true movement that people are really evaluating their relationship with consumer goods and focusing on, loving people use things, not the other way around, which sometimes people can get into the habit of worshiping things and using people. And I love the way that they reframed that. And the amount of excess that's in the world today, which some people will argue and say, well, that's what makes the world go round, or products in the economy. But taking a different reset on it, on which of these things are actually bringing me fulfillment, making my life better, so we can appreciate events and experiences, which I know you do. One of the reasons I directed you to it is you really live that, and focusing more on experiences than consumable products, even though we both have, our fair share of products as well.
For sure. I mean, I spend all my money on travel, experience, events, food or drink or whatever. Like, it's never, for me, it's been materialistic stuff. I mean, I got a lot of hats and t-shirts and all that stuff. And it's like almost definitely way more hats than I need. But it is a good reminder to get rid of some things that I don't wear anymore. And all of my clothes and things that I have are gifts more often than not. I rarely ever go shop for myself, but it's true. I'd rather spend all of my money on experiences and getting out there and enjoying life and creating memories. I mean, that for me, that's what it's all about. For a lot of people, though, what I thought was I don't have this issue, but I know a lot of people do. And listening to that documentary is when you have your emotional support animal or your emotional support coping with whatever vice that you have. Some people, it's shopping, and it's just going out and trying to feel good about themselves and gathering more stuff. And then you come home and you're like, dang, I didn't really need that. It didn't really make me feel that, the way I thought it would. And I think that there's a lot of things in life that are like that, where you go out and have an extra, a drink or something, like, man, I didn't really need that extra drink. I could have just powered through and went on a walk instead, right? Like, there's so much of that, depending on what it is that you're trying to cope with and whatever. But the stuff piece, like the decluttering piece, goes far above and beyond the house. And there's so many aspects of your life that you can declutter. And one of the ones that I took a big focus on this year was financially decluttering what I've got going on and consolidating things, like, whether it's debt, consolidating to one vehicle that I can just focus on, or if I'm growing a portfolio or investing, focused on one type of mission in terms of investing instead of scattered all around. A few years ago, I was doing one-off option type stuff, or just tracking my books. Like, I set up a QuickBooks account to track my personal finances. I do it for my businesses, have been for years, and just doing that on a personal level provides so much clarity and just declutters the chaos of what's going on, and just kind of bringing that in and simplifying things and have visibility to it really helps with developing habits and an identity shift of how you treat money and finances. Absolutely.
And one of the principles that I've found ever since came across it, the Pareto principle or the 80-20 rule, is that, 80% of our results come from 20% of our activities. That's something that I have worked into my sales philosophy that's very fluid. I don't have a lot of rules or follow a specific framework, but that is one that has just rung true, that every year, 80% of my results and revenue generated was from 20% of my accounts. So being able to identify those, to really have a minimalist or essentialist approach, that allows you to focus and allows you to even increase some of that results portion. So I love that. And when Paul and I talk about it, it's something that I'm constantly working on. And if that retreat that I just went to 3 weeks ago now up north, every time I go to Hamid's home, it's always in my notebook. I was looking back at my results, is like, be more like Hamid. And I come home and I just go on this tear of getting rid, because his place, everything is in its specific place. And it's not like he just has all this white space and is a complete monk, but each item has a specific place, and he places things away right after he uses them. And it's just, there's so much peace and harmony that you inherit from that, which Shannon was walking us through a lot in her design with space. And it's not about having nothing, but it's about having beautiful, excellent things that don't take up too much space and too much cognitive load.
That episode was such a good one because she's solely focused on that aspect of how mindfulness is so important in your life. And if you can bring that into your house, and, there's studies that show like certain shapes and certain colors that make you feel a certain way. And when you have all of the stuff around, it blocks that, like you said, that cognitive load, that mindset doesn't allow for creativity or clarity or whatever. And I think we talk about alignment a lot, and, when you have that clutter in your life of chaos between relationships and pulled in different directions, or clients or partners, or you've got so many different areas of your life that you're getting, you're doing a million miles a minute, tons of balls in the air and trying to figure it all out. Decluttering that and simplifying things and figuring out exactly what it is that you want and where you're trying to go and saying no to more things. You and I were just talking about this before we hopped on. It's so difficult to just say no sometimes, but you have to get in that habit to just like say no without, you don't even have to give a reason.
Yeah.
You can just be like, hey, thanks so much. But I can't make it, have a great time. And that's that. You don't have to give a reason why, because if it doesn't align, don't say yes just because you feel bad. And so that's very hard when it comes to decluttering relationships, right? Like, especially if they don't align with you anymore, as you're going through this change and this habit change and this identity shift and this mindset shift and the growth and everything that we talk about and the things that you and I are living. Sometimes, anyone else living that, sometimes people in our past aren't on the same path, and that's okay. But you have to be okay with decluttering some of those relationships in order to continue that growth and not being dragged back down, as difficult as it is.
Bang on. And for me throughout this journey, started with the minimalist, was watching a ton of YouTube videos on minimalism, but then I found a concept that I liked a little bit better. And it was coming from a guy that was still in the business world. He's a consultant, name's Greg McCown. And he wrote a book called Essentialism. And I liked it even better because his tagline was good. He's just a great writer, but his tagline for the book is the disciplined pursuit of less. And it was literally, the whole concept was about doing less better. And that allows you to become an expert and allows you to hone and build in the repetition. And I was working with this client and friend on some things that he was doing as he approached the leadership suite. And it almost all stemmed from this book. I recommended the book, and we had multiple conversations about what are you saying no to? Like, more importantly, like, what are you saying no to right now? Yeah. Because we get into a place where we feel like we can take it all on. And when you're earlier in your career, I would say that is the way. Yeah. Take on as much as you can to figure out what you like, to figure out what you're good at, to figure out what you're bad at, and take every meeting, take every coffee. But once you start building expertise and you start down a path of mastery, then it becomes a reduction game and getting better by doing less. And so a lot of this comes down to what we talk about on this podcast all the time is the power of choice. Everything that we say yes to, we're saying no to an infinite amount of things. So those yeses have to really count. And there is a trade-off. Like there is sacrifice involved here. So the FOMO that we talked a lot about with Mark, I think we talked about on the pod or not, he owns that all the time. You have to let go of that as we're mapping back toward our values, the character that we want to live, and getting those clear is really step one.
Yeah, I think you nailed it when you kind of look at decades of your life, and when you start getting to adulthood and you're starting to grow a business or whatever, like you've got to develop that network and you've got to say yes to meetings with, it doesn't matter how many people, you're just talking to anybody and everybody that'll listen that you want to try and work with and develop relationships with. But once you get to that point and that kind of inflection point where you build that growth and you're, a lot of times banging your head against the wall, just grinding it out. And then you get to the point where you've built something really cool and it gets to the point where it's like, I don't need to take those meetings necessarily anymore. And I'm just going to focus on how do I grow this thing to another level, as opposed to spending all my time with 1 or 2 coffee meetings or 3 coffee meetings in a day, where I can spend that time focus on marketing or sales or whatever else I need to do in order to drive more business to my business. And obviously on a personal level, same thing goes. Like you're just trying to meet new people, figure out, open your mind up to new ideas and perspectives. And once you have established what it is that you want and where you want to go, it does, that reduction is key. Otherwise, burnout is when, burning the candle at both ends. That becomes a real thing. And that's when you start going through the deep, dark abyss sometimes of like, what am I doing here? Right. And you've got to figure out how to get out of that. So decluttering in your mind is probably the most important thing outside of decluttering anything else.
And right on that theme, one of the things he says that hit me like a bag of rocks was, if you don't prioritize your life, somebody else will.
Yeah.
And that's
That's an interesting
whole
take.
concept of if you're not going to be assertive to choose the right things in your life, then your reaction and your go with the flow and wherever the wind takes you, that's somebody else actually having a clear grasp of what's essential, and you become a part of their plan as opposed to really trying to make an impact on what you want and what mission that you're on.
So do you do this, Phil? Do you go through like your house, and you and Paula, do you actually go through like your closet, like the prototypical spring cleaning? I know we used to have to do it when we were kids. We don't do a good job of this now in the house in terms of like removing stuff. But I'm curious, do you and Paula go through that process?
We do. And we're in the process of doing, I actually thought about, this is back to my, if there's an expert, we should know how to get rid of stuff. But I was thinking about hiring an organization expert just to see for our kitchen.
Oh yeah. There's like people out there that'll do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I could totally see the argument that it's a waste of money if you can't figure out how to organize your own stuff. But I just think it'd be a fun process to go through, like someone that could justify the workflow of a kitchen or whatever, because my office is my office and it's pretty darn good. And then our closets stay pretty good. But she would say that I have a more of a clothes problem than she does, clothes and shoes, which is accurate. I would not fight her on it, really. But we do a good job of calling each other out of, hey, I'm doing a purge, we'll call it. Are you doing a purge too? And then I take it all to St. Vincent de Paul, making sure that we're passing it along. So you guys haven't done one in a while?
Well, it's been a little. So Kim's really good about it. I'm not great, but she does a really good job of keeping us in line with that. And especially with the kids, like they've got so many toys and things from when they were younger that they don't touch. And so we do a good job of every year going through with the trash bags and just throwing stuff in there and donating it. And we do try to say, okay, if we donate all of these, then hey, we'll get you, a Nintendo Switch game or something like that, replace it with something. But she does a really good job of that, especially, and it's easy with the kids because they grow out of their clothes so quickly that we're either donating it to our younger cousins or nieces, their younger cousins, our nieces and nephews, or we're donating that stuff as well. But personally, I've got freaking t-shirts and shorts from like high school still, you know what I mean? Like we don't need to still have this stuff, but it's still being worn. I've got basketball shoes from when I was 20 years old that I still will rock every now and then, and I probably don't need them.
But you bring up a good point that they talk to. We build an emotional attachment to these things. Like I have a couple golf shirts that are from like top of mind. There's one from Kapalua that I'm like, oh no, I got this at Kapalua. It was one of the most special rounds of golf. I've had it in my hand to get rid of it because I don't wear it that much, but it's like, we need to have the ability to say, I have all the memories from that trip. I have a couple great photos. This shirt does not tie me to that place, especially if I'm not wearing it. But it's that emotional attachment we get of this is mine, of ownership.
Yeah, it's 100%. Yeah, it is. It's weird. It's like I see every time we go, and there's a couple of shirts that'll fan through. I'll never put it on, but it's always a reminder of where I got it or where we were or whatever. And I'm like, why is it still sitting there? It doesn't need to be there. It's so dumb. But yeah, I mean, the other thing too is like when you open up your pantry or your fridge and you just have stuff and junk and food all over the place. And what do you do with it? You end up throwing half of it out when it's like it goes rotten or whatever. Or I love the idea of going out to eat or making a big meal and you have these leftovers and putting them back in the fridge and you just leave them there for 4 days and then throw them out anyway. Like it happens all the time. Like it's very rare that we actually eat our leftovers. And It's like when you think about all of the minimalist stuff, it's like make enough for the meal then if you're not going to eat your leftovers, or don't order the extra appetizers at the restaurant if you know you're not going to eat your full meal, or all those types of things. And it goes hand in hand with financial and saving money there too. But, you open up your fridge and it's like, we've gotten in the habit now where we'll take our fruits and put them in like Tupperware, like actually organize them so they're like right then and there instead of just kind of scattered all over the place. And we've taken a little bit more of a minimalist approach there with how we eat. And we've put a heavy focus on not going out as much. I mean, it helps with decluttering your health, right? And so when you don't have it dialed in food-wise, nutrition-wise, you're kind of like all over the place and putting all sorts of things in your body that don't serve you. when you can focus on a health conscious diet and kind of open up your fridge to have like a beautiful looking, almost artistic fridge with things, the colorful fruits and veggies and all this stuff, and it's all organized well, there's something to that. And I think it takes some time, but once you get into the habit and that's like all you see, you don't like it, it's almost repulsive to drive by a McDonald's and want to get that for yourself. Now the kids still love Happy Meals, but we try to, shy away from that sort of thing.
Yeah. They had a challenge on the minimalist, and I did want to talk about Marie Kondo a little bit too, but the challenge, I think it's 30 days. And for those 30 days, you give away one thing day 1, 2 things day 2, 3 things day 3. And you start
that's going to
going down this path, but it can be as small as a paper clip or, it can get really simple at the start, but it's really that process that eases you into giving up the material items. And there's a lot of people that have reported back on how impactful this exercise was for them. Not necessarily, of course, they're getting rid of things, and that's impactful, but the emotional and mental release of going through this challenge for 30 days I thought was pretty cool.
That's a great one. I mean, I can't do the math off the top of my head, but it's like 1,000 items at least, probably more, when you do like a month of that. But I don't know. Are you a messy desk guy? Or are you pretty clean?
Clean desk guy.
Oh, man.
Clean desk.
I try so hard.
I can't. I'm actually struggling right now. My closet door's open and it bugs me. Like, I just love it. It's just become the less that's out there, it's just empty mind. Same thing with my desktop. Like if the folders or files that are on the desktop get too much, it drives me nuts.
I'm glad I'm not sharing my screen. You'd probably have a heart attack. It's like, I don't know. It's just, I've always had like just things all over, like, it's weird. I know where everything is, and I know exactly where this note is that I took, but it's under a pile of papers, and it's terrible. I hate the look of it, and I need to get in a better habit. Like I'm that guy that has the messy desk, and then at the end of the day, I try and clean it up to make it, at least when I'm at the office with my team, I have the desktop and my laptop where there's icons everywhere, and someone looks at that and they're like, Jesus, that is insane. And I want to be a minimalist there. I just can't quite get there, so I'm going to try my best, because there's nothing more refreshing walking into your office and you see a clean, clear desk, and it's almost a way to set the tone. And that's something that I'm definitely working on and have picked up from you, because I know I did remember that. I think I've been in your office a handful of times, and it's always been clean. I've never seen it messy.
I think that you're not alone there, especially entrepreneurs like yourself. It's chaos, but they know where to find that 20% in the chaos. They know where it's at and go after it. But these are all things that, we could take a little bit from, be cognizant of it, but we also don't want it to turn into something that's creating even more cognitive load to beat ourselves up on. We gotta run with the optimal minimal and work with what we can.
Well, Jamie, real quick about the desk thing. Jamie got me, listeners, Jamie is my business partner, as you know, Phil, and she got me this desk, sign or whatever you call it, like paperweight thing or whatever. And it said, a messy desk is a sign of genius. And I was like, and I go, I think that was just her way of like saying, like making me feel good about it maybe, like, and being okay with it. But I was almost like, damn, she noticed that I've got a messy desk to actually go get me something that put on my desk to make it even more cluttered. I got to clean this shit up. Right? I've got to clear it up and have that be the only thing. Just the irony of it made it kind of fun. But yeah, I mean, I think especially if you're in a setting where people are coming into your office and your desk is messy, it's not a very good look.
The third person I wanted to bring up was Marie Kondo, who's become like incredibly well known for her mission on organizing. And she created kind of her own method, the KonMari method, I believe, using a spin on her name. And one of the first things she does, she says to do it by type, not necessarily space. So do all clothes at one time, then do all kitchen at one time, because it keeps you focused and allows you to stay on track in those areas. But she makes you, the first question that she asks is, does this spark joy? Which I thought it was interesting. Like when we're talking about your t-shirts, your high school kicks, my golf shirt, yeah, it sparks joy. But really sitting with the feeling of, is this joy of attachment, or does this item actually bring joy into my life? And it's really interesting because it can start some mental jujitsu as you're looking through this stuff. I don't do it every time, but it's a really interesting concept of those are the things that we want to keep around us, or things that spark joy and those positive emotions, not just keeping them to attach to something in the past, which can be hard to draw the lines, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's the hardest part about spring cleaning is you don't want to let something go. You're thinking, oh, what if I need that? What if I need that thing in the future, right? If it's like a document or something, scan it in and put it on your laptop. Or what if I need this? You never know if there's something in your house that if you get rid of it and then like two months later, you're like, oh, I really wish I had that. Like, what are the odds? Like, it's just not going to happen. But yeah, I've really enjoyed this topic, man. I think it's a good reminder for everybody listening in just to, get some spring cleaning done. Focus not only on the stuff that you have in your house, but also financially, your health, decluttering where you're at in your health journey, the relationships that you have in your life, and kind of being a minimalist and focusing on the things that matter and not so much saying yes to everything, saying no to more things, and focusing on the things that align. Great topic, my friend.
One thing that we're not minimalists on are likes, comments, shares, and subscribes. So we like to pile those up, which we appreciate day in and day out, listeners.
Subscribe, baby. We're on YouTube.
All right, that's the pod. We'll be back at you next week on the SuccessFlow Podcast.